Jenny slipped out the door with a wink. "I won't be long at the party, babe. Just a couple drinks, then I'll be home." I nodded, not even looking up from my laptop. I was in the middle of crushing a deadline for work, and honestly, I didn't give it much thought. It's Jenny, my confident, loud-mouthed, no-nonsense wife. She'd told me last minute about her plans, but I figured it was one of her impulsive girls' night out things. Fine, whatever. I wasn't going to be the husband who hounded her about every little thing. Except, it was already past 1 a.m., and my patience was wearing thin. I stood in the kitchen, tapping my fingers on the counter, my irritation rising with each passing minute. No texts, no calls, not even a breadcrumb to show where the hell she was. Out of nowhere, a sharp ring cuts through the silence. Her phone. I'd almost forgotten she left it charging on the kitchen counter. An incoming call. The screen lights up with a name that sent an uncomfortable jolt down my spine. Mike. Who the hell is Mike? Something told me to pick up, but I didn't. Instead, I let it ring. Then, a notification popped up. Missed call from Mike. "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was fire." Fire? Before I could even process that, another message came through. "Is your husband home tonight, or can we go round two?" The rage hit me like a sucker punch. Something wasn't adding up. This wasn't just some innocent late night out. There was something dirty going on, and I was about to dig deep enough to find it. I grabbed my keys and headed out. No more waiting. Time to get some answers. I was out the door before I even knew what I was doing. My heart was slamming against my ribs, anger mixing with something worse, fear. Not the fear of what I might find, but the fear that I already knew. Jenny wasn't at any party. There was no girls' night. And this Mike? Yeah, I was going to find him. I jumped in my car, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Her phone was blowing up with more messages from him, each one worse than the last. "You look so good in that red dress. Can't wait to rip it off again." Again. Are you kidding me? My mind was spinning, but I had to focus. Where the hell could she be? Then it hit me. I remembered she mentioned a bar once, the Stumble Inn. She said it was a dive where her friend liked to go, a place she could just chill. I had my doubts it was as innocent as that, but I couldn't think of anywhere else. So I hit the gas. As I pulled up to the bar, I felt a sickening mix of adrenaline and dread. The neon sign buzzed above the entrance, casting a greasy red glow over the crowd outside. I scanned the parking lot, and there it was. Jenny's car, parked in the back, tucked away like she didn't want anyone to notice. My pulse was pounding in my ears as I marched toward the entrance, shoving my way through the door. The music was loud, the place packed with sweaty bodies, but I barely noticed. All I could think about was finding her and that Mike. I scanned the room, and then I saw them. Jenny sitting at the bar, her back turned to me, laughing with some guy who was leaning way too close. His hand rested casually on her leg, like it belonged there. I felt my stomach drop, like the ground had just disappeared from under me. I couldn't stop myself. I stormed over. I stormed through the crowd, heart hammering in my chest, not caring who I shoved out of my way. Every nerve in my body was on fire as I closed the distance between me and that lying bitch I called my wife. Jenny didn't see me coming. She was too busy giggling at something Mike said, her hand playfully touching his arm like it was the most natural thing in the world. Who the hell was this person? I didn't hesitate. My hand landed hard on her shoulder, spinning her around. The shock on her face was priceless, wide-eyed, frozen, like a deer caught in headlights. She blinked at me for a second, clearly trying to process how I was standing there, right in front of her. "What the hell is this?" I practically spat the words out, my voice louder than I intended, causing heads to turn. Jenny's face flushed, but not from guilt. No, it was more like annoyance. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she rolled her eyes, her expression twisting into that infuriatingly calm smirk she uses when she thinks she's smarter than everyone around her. Oh, relax, Jason. It's not what you think, she said, her voice dripping with fake innocence. I just needed some time out, okay? This is just a friend. A friend? The word hit me like a slap in the face. I glanced at Mike, who was now looking between the two of us with a cocky grin plastered across his face. He didn't even try to move his hand from her leg. The audacity of this prick. I looked back at her, my blood boiling. A friend, huh? And what was that text he sent you about last night being fire? What, you think I'm stupid? Jenny's smirk faltered for a second, just a flicker, but then it came back, stronger, colder. Jesus, Jason, you're being ridiculous. Stop embarrassing yourself. She shot a glance at Mike, who was still sitting there like this was some kind of joke to him. I saw red. My fists clenched, and before I could stop myself, I lunged toward him. Before I knew it, my fist connected with Mike's jaw. The impact sent a shockwave up my arm, and the sound of flesh hitting bone echoed through the bar. He stumbled back, crashing into the bar stool, his cocky grin wiped clean off his face. "Jason, stop it!" Jenny screamed, finally jumping to her feet. But I wasn't hearing any of it. All I could focus on was the rage pouring through me, the raw betrayal fueling every muscle in my body. Mike staggered, wiping blood from his split lip, and looked at me like he couldn't believe what just happened. I half expected him to throw a punch back, but he didn't. Instead, he just grinned. That grin, like he had already won. "Really, man? Over her?" he said, spitting blood onto the floor. "She's not worth it." Those words hit harder than the punch. Not worth it? My wife wasn't worth it? I turned to Jenny, who was standing there, arms crossed, looking at me like I was the one who'd lost my mind. "Tell me the truth, Jenny." My voice was low, but I could barely hold back the tremble of rage underneath it. "How long has this been going on?" She didn't answer at first, just stood there, looking like she was weighing her options. For a split second, I saw something in her eyes. Maybe guilt, maybe shame, but it was gone before I could even process it. "Does it really matter?" she finally said, her voice icy, no remorse. "You want to know the truth, Jason? Fine. It's been months." She said it so casually, like she was telling me about the weather. Months. My whole body went numb. I felt like the floor was collapsing beneath me, like everything I thought I knew had been a lie. Months of betrayal. While I was at home, trusting her, she was out here with him. Why? The question slipped out before I could stop it, and suddenly I felt pathetic. I didn't even know why I was asking. I shouldn't care why. I should just walk away, right? But I needed to know. Jenny sighed, like she was bored of this conversation already. "You're too easy, Jason. Too predictable. You're always working, always doing your thing, and I wanted something exciting." That word, exciting, cut deeper than anything else. All those late nights, all the trust I had put into her, and I was too easy. I stood there, my fists trembling, my mind racing to catch up with the sheer absurdity of what she'd just said. Too easy? Predictable? Was this really how she saw me after everything? After 6 years of marriage? "Exciting," I echoed, my voice hollow. "So you ruin our entire marriage for excitement? You betray me for this?" I gestured toward Mike, who was still sitting there, casually dabbing his bloody lip like he was untouchable. Jenny shrugged, her expression cold, indifferent. She wasn't even trying to apologize. She didn't care. "It wasn't about ruining anything, Jason. It's not like I planned it, all right? But things happened. We got comfortable. You just didn't notice, or maybe you didn't care either." She said it so calmly, like this was just a mild inconvenience. "Comfortable?" I felt my voice rise, but I didn't care. "So your solution to being comfortable was to crawl into someone else's bed?" She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "Jesus, calm down. This doesn't have to be the end of the world." I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. Not the end of the world. Everything I thought we had, all the trust, all the years, just shattered like it was nothing to her. I had never felt so small, so disposable. I turned to Mike, who was watching all of this like it was some twisted reality show. "You think this is funny?" I snarled, stepping toward him again, fists clenching. He raised his hands in mock defense, still smirking like a jackass. "Hey, man, she's the one who reached out to me. I just gave her what she wanted. Not my problem if you can't keep her entertained." The rage that surged through me at those words was unlike anything I'd ever felt. My vision blurred, and for a split second I wanted to destroy him. But then Jenny stepped in front of me, blocking my path. "Jason, stop. You're embarrassing yourself." Her voice was sharp now, no trace of softness, no hint of the woman I thought I knew. "You're not gonna fix this by punching people. What's done is done." I stared at her, my chest heaving, trying to process how cold she had become. I'd been standing here humiliated, betrayed, and she didn't even flinch, didn't even care. Something broke inside me in that moment. I thought back to the late nights she'd worked late, the weekends she'd gone out with her friends. It all made sense now. Every little excuse, every weird text, every moment she was distant. I'd been a fool, blind to what was happening right under my nose. And here she was, looking at me like I was the problem, like I was the one ruining this. I took a deep breath, my hands shaking with the effort it took to hold myself together. "You want excitement, Jenny? Fine. Have it. Have all of it." My voice cracked with anger, but beneath it, there was something else. Finality. Her eyes narrowed, like she didn't believe me, like this was just another fight I'd get over. But I wasn't going to get over this. Not ever. I took a step back, letting the weight of her betrayal sink in, the finality of it starting to settle over me like a crushing wave. I was done. Really done. No more yelling, no more fighting, no more playing into her manipulative games. "You want out? Fine." My voice was steady now, each word deliberate, like I had been rehearsing this moment in my head. "Consider yourself free. Go ahead, Jenny. Run around with your new toy. I'm done." For a second, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes. Maybe she hadn't expected me to say it. Maybe she thought she could keep playing me, dragging this out until I broke. But I wasn't playing her game anymore. Not a chance. Mike stood up, finally deciding to step out of the shadows of our mess. "So, I think I'll head out." He gave Jenny a quick, awkward pat on the shoulder like he was congratulating her for a job well done, then shot me a smirk. "Good luck, man." He walked off like he hadn't just torn my life apart, disappearing into the bar crowd like this was just another night. "Look at you," Jenny said, crossing her arms as if she was the one wronged here. Her tone dripped with contempt. "You act like you're such a martyr. Poor Jason doing everything right. But let's not pretend you've been perfect. You've been checked out for months." That snapped something in me. Checked out? I've been busting my ass trying to keep us together while you were out king around behind my back. The words came out harsher than I expected, but they felt good, honest. She didn't flinch. In fact, she smirked. "You think that's all it takes? You think just because you work hard, I'm supposed to sit there like some loyal puppy? It's not enough, Jason. I need more than your boring routine." The sheer cruelty of her words took the breath out of me. More than me? I wanted to scream. I'd given her everything. But instead of lashing out, I just nodded. "Yeah, well, I hope Mike gives you what you're looking for," I said, my voice quieter now, but every word loaded with finality. "I'm done trying to figure out what the hell you need." She blinked, not expecting me to just walk away like this. "Jason, don't act like you're doing me a favor. You're the one who couldn't keep up. You couldn't even see it coming." I stared at her for a long moment, feeling the last bit of any love or attachment I had for her burn away into ashes. I thought about the late nights I waited for her, the mornings I made her coffee, the vacations I'd planned that she canceled. All for nothing. Yeah, I said finally. You're right, I didn't see it coming. But I see it now. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the bar, leaving her standing there alone. I got into my car and slammed the door shut, the weight of everything hitting me all at once. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white, my head buzzing with 1,000 thoughts I couldn't control. I had just walked away from my marriage. 6 years of my life, gone in the span of a single night. I didn't start the car right away. I just sat there, staring blankly at the dashboard, trying to catch my breath. My mind was racing. Angry thoughts, painful thoughts, the kind that grab you by the throat and don't let go. I felt stupid. How did I let it get this far? All the signs were there. Her late nights, her distance, the sudden girls' nights that came out of nowhere. How had I convinced myself it was all in my head? How did I trust her so blindly? My phone buzzed in the passenger seat, snapping me out of the spiral for a moment. I glanced at the screen. It was a message from Jenny. For a second, I felt the urge to ignore it, but something in me wanted to know what she had to say. I opened it, expecting some pathetic excuse, maybe an attempt at damage control. But no, it was worse. You're overreacting. We could have worked this out, but you had to go and ruin it. Maybe if you'd put this much effort into our marriage, I wouldn't have needed Mike. I stared at the screen, my blood boiling all over again. She was still blaming me, still acting like I was the problem, like I was the reason she cheated. I felt a surge of anger so strong I could barely breathe. I typed back, fingers shaking from the fury. You're unbelievable! Don't text me again! I hit send, tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, and finally turned the ignition. The engine roared to life, but I sat there for a moment, letting the sound drown out the chaos in my head. Then I pulled out of the parking lot, the streetlights blurring as I sped down the road, my thoughts as fast and furious as my driving. What now? I had no idea where I was going. I just needed to drive, to get away from that bar, from Jenny, from everything. The night felt heavy, suffocating. My mind kept replaying the scene over and over, her sitting there with him laughing, not a single ounce of regret. Everything felt unreal. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. We were supposed to be happy. I had worked so hard to give her everything she wanted, to be the husband I thought I was supposed to be. And for what? So she could throw it all away for some thrill with a guy like Mike? I gripped the steering wheel tighter, the anger mixing with something worse now, the pain. I could feel it creeping up on me, clawing at my chest, threatening to break through the wall I was trying to hold up. I was hurt. I was humiliated. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was shattered, and I had no idea what the hell to do next. I barely noticed where I was driving. My hands were on autopilot, steering me through the dark, empty streets. The city was quiet, everyone else asleep in their homes. Normal people, with normal lives, who weren't dealing with this. But I couldn't shut my mind off. Jenny's words kept echoing in my head. You're overreacting. We could have worked this out if you'd put in more effort. Like I was supposed to fix the wreckage she created. Like I was the one who failed. And her betrayal was just the natural consequence of my shortcomings. It was sick. She was sick. I pulled into an empty parking lot, the tires screeching slightly as I stopped abruptly. I slammed the car into park and just sat there, gripping the wheel until my arms ached, staring into the darkness like it could somehow give me answers. What the hell just happened to my life? I couldn't keep it in anymore. The anger, the pain, the humiliation, it all came crashing down at once, suffocating me. Before I knew it, I was punching the steering wheel, each hit sending a shockwave of rage through my body. "Kay!" I screamed, slamming my fists over and over, my whole body shaking as months, maybe years, of bottled-up frustration exploded out of me. I hit the dashboard so hard I thought I might break something, but I didn't care. Nothing mattered. Everything I had believed in, everything I had worked for, was gone. And all I had left was this stupid, useless rage. And then, just like that, I collapsed. My head fell against the steering wheel, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My chest was heaving, and I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes before I could stop them. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to give her, or anyone, the satisfaction of knowing how much she had broken me, but I couldn't stop it. The tears came, silently at first, and then harder, faster. The sobs tore out of me, shaking my entire body as I sat there alone, my forehead pressed against the wheel, the cold reality of it all finally sinking in. She didn't love me. She never loved me the way I thought she did. Maybe she had, once, but that was long gone. All those nights I had stayed up late thinking she was busy with work or out with friends. She had been with him. All those moments I thought I was building something real, something lasting. She had been tearing it apart behind my back. And now I was the one left picking up the pieces while she carried on like nothing mattered, like I didn't matter. I don't know how long I sat there crying like a goddamn mess, my heart shattered into a million pieces. I had never felt so alone, so stupid, so angry at myself for ever trusting her, for letting her get away with it for so long. Eventually, the tears stopped. But the pain didn't. It just sat there, gnawing at me from the inside, a reminder of everything I had lost. And as I sat there in the dark, the only thought left in my head was, what now? I had no home to go back to, no wife to comfort me, just an empty car, an empty parking lot, and a life that had just crashed and burned in front of me. After what felt like hours of sitting in that parking lot, my head against the wheel, the anger and pain started to simmer down, leaving only exhaustion, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes it hard to even move. I had nothing left, nothing to yell, nothing to punch, nothing to cry about anymore. But one thing kept circling in my mind. This is it. It's over. I couldn't go back. There was no saving this, no fixing the wreckage Jenny had left behind. She didn't care. She wasn't sorry. She wanted more excitement, more thrills, and apparently, I was just an obstacle in the way of her fun. And as much as it hurt, as much as I wanted to hold on to the life we'd built, the truth was right there in front of me. That life was a lie. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, still shaky but clearer now. I knew what I had to do, even if every part of me wished I didn't. There wasn't any grand decision-making process. It was just cold, hard reality staring me in the face. Divorce. I pulled out my phone, my fingers hovering over the screen, knowing that what I was about to do would make everything real. No more fighting, no more trying to understand why she did it. This was about me now, taking control of the mess. I dialed my lawyer's number. It was late, so I left a voicemail. My voice was steady, almost robotic, as I explained the situation, asked about starting the paperwork. I barely recognized myself. When I hung up, it felt like I had just signed away 6 years of my life, like I was officially cutting ties with everything I had believed in. But strangely enough, there was a sense of relief in it. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to let her twist the knife any further. I was done playing her game. Just as I put the phone down, it buzzed again. Another text. From her. I stared at the notification for a long moment before opening it, bracing myself for more of her manipulative garbage. Come home, Jason. We need to talk. I didn't mean for things to go like this. Let's figure it out, okay? You're not thinking straight right now. I almost laughed. The audacity of her. Thinking she could still pull me back, reel me in like I was some fool who just needed a few soft words and promises. She didn't want to lose the comfort I provided. She wanted both worlds, and she thought I was still that clueless guy who'd wait around for her to figure out what she wanted. Not anymore. I typed back quickly. It's already figured out. I'll be sending divorce papers soon. Don't bother coming home. I'm done. The second I hit send, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. The finality of it settled in, and this time, it wasn't suffocating. It was freeing. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I was taking control of my life again. There was no going back, and I was okay with that. The drive back felt different. There was no rage, no panic, no desperate need for answers, just the calm after the storm. The world outside my window looked the same, but everything in me had shifted. I wasn't the same guy who let her twist my reality, who spent months wondering why his wife was pulling away. That guy was dead. When I pulled up to the house, it hit me. This wasn't my home anymore. It was just a place filled with the ghosts of what we used to be. But that was fine. I wasn't planning on staying long. I walked in, and the silence inside wasn't comforting, but it wasn't suffocating either. I didn't even bother looking around. I knew what I needed to do. I grabbed a suitcase from the closet, throwing in whatever clothes and essentials I could fit, not caring if I forgot something. I wasn't attached to any of this. I wasn't attached to her anymore. I packed fast, moving through the house like a ghost myself, slipping past the photos of us smiling, the anniversary gifts, the little mementos of a life that was over. On the kitchen counter was her phone, still charging, and I almost laughed at the sight of it. Her lifeline to Mike. I didn't touch it. She'd come home, find it, and realize that everything she thought she had control over was slipping out of her hands. Before I left, I wrote one last note. No long explanations, no dramatic goodbyes, just 2 words scribbled on a piece of paper. It's over. I tossed it on the counter next to her phone and walked out the door. No looking back. As I drove away, the night air felt cool, crisp, like I could finally breathe. The weight that had been sitting on my chest for so long was lifting, little by little. I didn't know where I was going yet. Probably a hotel for now, maybe crash with a friend. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't care. I wasn't worried about the future. It was mine now, not something I had to share with a liar. Not something I had to protect from crumbling. I was free. I'd learned something, though. Trust isn't something you give blindly. People will take advantage of it, twist it, and break it if you let them. But more than that, I learned that I'm stronger than this. Stronger than her betrayal, stronger than the wreckage she left behind. I wasn't going to let this define me. So to anyone reading this, anyone who's been through the same kind of hell, let go. Don't wait for answers that'll never satisfy you. Don't keep holding on to someone who doesn't give a damn about you. Walk away before it destroys you completely. I did. And for the first time in months, I was finally free.